We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Tensions erupt outside a migrant camp in northern Greece. Former President Barack Obama hails youth climate protests in Berlin. A welfare group says lions and other animals to be saved from a Gaza zoo. A French cave is still spitting out Garfield. Yes, Garfield phones 30 years on. Britain, France, and Kuwait call for a political dialogue in Libya. Pompeo stands by the State Department's account of meeting with Turkey's foreign minister. NATO chief defends Germany defense investment and talks U.S.-Turkey missile dispute. Tim Ryan joins the crowded Democratic field for 2020. Plus, the Iglesia Ni Cristo's Aid to Humanity reaches out to Molokai Island. Hello everyone, I am Rose Papa Angeles, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. New tensions erupted on Saturday outside a migrant camp in northern Greece between migrants and Greek police who prevented them from advancing towards the border with North Macedonia. Hundreds of migrants from camps elsewhere in the country gathered outside the Deavada camp near Thessaloniki after anonymous social media posts over recent days claimed that human rights groups stood ready to assist migrants in crossing into North Macedonia and to other EU states. An AFP photographer on the spot said after two coaches left the area on Saturday morning, taking some of the protesting migrants to other camps in northern Greece, a group of the 800 remaining migrants threw stones at policemen who responded with tear gas. On Friday, the migrants, among them families with small children, had tried to break the police cordon, and security forces used tear gas and stun grenades. Also on Friday, around 200 migrants occupied the Larissis Central train station in Athens, shouting Thessaloniki and Germany. They had bought tickets to Thessaloniki intending to also travel to Deavada camp, but authorities stopped the train. Greece's Migration Minister Dimitris Vitsa said on Saturday people exhorted by fake news were misled because of their hope. They want to pass the border, so they believed in the fake news. Vitsa told state agency ANA on Friday, for some reason smugglers are claiming that the borders will open. The borders are not going to open. North Macedonia's interior minister said Skopje had bolstered border security. More than 70,000 refugees and migrants are believed to be living in Greece as a result of mass influx since 2015, fueled mainly by the Syrian civil war. Most have submitted requests for asylum, clogging an already overburdened application system and further exacerbating approval delays that can stretch into years. In 2016, a sprawling tent city formed at the border town of Idomeni, a bottleneck where 8,000 people mainly from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan were stranded after other EU countries began shutting their borders. The improvised camp was eventually cleared by Greek authorities, and the migrants and refugees were relocated to organized facilities around the country. Former U.S. President Barack Obama visiting Berlin on Saturday held weekly protests by youths against climate change, saying, quote, "The sooner you start, the better."
You know, the Friday movement that's been taking place around climate change is, you know, so a lot of those people can't vote, right? They're too young to vote yet, but they know what's going on, and they're making change. And those habits that, and that sense of power that they're developing now, that's going to carry over for the rest of their lives. So you would think that everybody'd feel pretty good right now. And yet, what we also know is that powerful forces are threatening to reverse many of these trends. The democratic institutions that help to bring these about oftentimes have been taken for granted. The planet that we live on is endangered. You've got social media that was once considered to be the network that would provide us greater understanding, now suddenly appears to be a tool that is used to spread disinformation and hatred and suspicion. Nationalism, particularly from the far right, has reemerged.
The Friday protests involve school children and teens and have been inspired by Swedish teen activist Greta Thunberg. Obama, who left the White House in 2017 after 2 terms, was in Germany to promote his foundation. He signed the Paris Climate Accord in 2015, which calls for capping global warming at well below 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. But the planet is currently on track to heat up by double that figure. His successor, Donald Trump, decided in June last year to exit the accord. An animal welfare group said 40 animals, including 5 lions, are to be rescued from squalid condition in the Gaza Strip. The Four Paws organization said the animals would be taken out of a zoo in the Palestinian enclave and relocated to sanctuaries in Jordan this week.
السلطات هنا ووصلنا الفترة اللي فاتت ان احنا نوصل لحل طويل الامد ان الحيوانات اللي هي تعبانة كلها هنا بناخدها لمحمية في الأردن والأماكن تانية في جنوب أفريقيا، محميات طبيعية خاصة بمنظمة الفور بوز، وأعتقد ده حل يرضي جميع الأطراف، وأعتقد إن برضو بنشكر.
So the lions are physically in a good condition. The lion from the traumatized, sure, definitely they are traumatized, a lot of stress, small cage, no space to move. It was wrong feeding, not enough feeding in the last months, and I would say last years, in fact. The lions are in very, very small place. It is pitons, they never touch the grass in their life.
So we are now in Rafah Zoo. We want to, of course, rescue all the animals from the zoo because unfortunately the animals here live in very bad conditions, so the enclosures are very small, and so it's very hard and very exhausting for the animals. So we want to offer them a better life in a sanctuary in Jordan, in Al-Marwa, and as well we want to bring the 2 lions that are behind me to our sanctuary Lions Rock in South Africa.
طبعا للأسف أنا ربيت الحيوانات الموجودة في الحديقة زي ما ربيت أطفالي، لكن طبعا للأسف فيش عناية صحية عنا، وفي نفس الوقت في جزء كبير عيان مريض بده علاج لازم يتعالج برا، وفي نفس الوقت أنا يعني غصب عني طلعت الشغلات هذه مضطر إن أحافظ عليها، فما بحافظش عليها إلا لما تطلع برا.
For more than 30 years, bright orange Garfield phones have been washing up on the French coast to the bemusement of local beach cleaners, who have finally cracked the mystery behind them. Locals had long suspected a lost shipping container was to blame for the novelty landline phones modeled on a prickly feline cartoon character, which have plagued the northern Finisterre beaches for decades. Claire Simonin, head of the beach cleaning group Arvel Tansu in Brittany, said, "Our association has existed for 18 years, and in that time we have found pieces of Garfield telephones almost each time we clean."
On a quand même affaire à une histoire un peu particulière, quelque chose d'intéressant, de porteur, et on se rend bien compte quand on va rencontrer des élèves en milieu scolaire, quand on leur fait faire des nettoyages, que dès qu'on parle de Garfield, la problématique des déchets marins, qui est notre préoccupation principale, réveille des vocations, que ça intéresse les gens, qu'il y a vraiment un sujet qui nous semble fort.
But it wasn't until a local resident revealed that he had discovered the container after a storm in the 1980s that they were finally able to locate it, wedged in a partially submerged cave only accessible at low tide. The dry-witted Garfield, first dreamed up by illustrator Jim Davis in the late 1970s, has since spawned a television show, a film series starring Bill Murray as the voice of the titular cat, and a merchandising empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Campaigners said the Garfield phone discoveries in France, however, highlight the problem of plastic in the oceans. Paul Ruxton, co-founder of Plastic Oceans Foundation, said, "Seeing these plastic phones on the beaches, especially so long after the incident, is a stark reminder of the persistence of plastic waste in the ocean. Plastic was designed not to break down, and large items like these being hardly weathered after 30 to 40 years is a clear indication of this." Scientists have estimated the world currently produces more than 300 million tons of plastics annually, and there are at least 5 trillion plastic pieces floating in our oceans. Some forecasts predict that there will be more plastics in the seas than fish by 2050. But lost shipping containers, of which there were 1,390 in 2017, according to the World Shipping Council, account for a small proportion of the pollution compared with the packaging industry. Jocelyn Blériot of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, a British charity that focuses on reducing waste, said phones typically don't end up in the sea. Where areas plastic packaging is pervasive, you find it pretty much everywhere. On every beach, you'll find a bottle of shampoo. You'll find a packet of crisp, or you'll find a bottle of soda or whatever. That's what you see on beaches, and that's what washes up. Even animals living in the deepest ocean trenches have been found with fragments of plastic in their gut, according to new research published in February showing how the scourge reach into the bowels of the planet. Roxton explained eventually plastics like the phones become so weathered that they start to become brittle and break up into ever small fragments, attracting harmful chemicals during the process. Eventually, they become so small that they are mistaken for plankton and are eaten by marine animals and become part of the food chain that leads to us. The long-term impact of plastic on humans is still undetermined, but governments are beginning to take action to stem the levels of plastic that reach the ocean. The European Parliament this week approved a proposal that would ban the top 10 most common single-use plastic products in Europe by 2021. Coming up, Britain, France, and Kuwait call for a political dialogue in Libya. Pompeo stands by the State Department's account of meeting with Turkey's foreign minister. NATO chief defends Germany's defense investments and talks U.S.-Turkey missile dispute. Tim Ryan joins the crowded Democratic field for 2020. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will be right back.
One of the most famous landmarks here in Stavanger, Norway. And if you want to see more of the tourist spots like this, just tune into Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 p.m. I'm managing Mihia from Stavanger, Norway. Always fun and fun.
ASEAN in Focus, Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The envoys for Britain, France, and Kuwait call for political dialogue in Libya as the UN Security Council meets behind closed doors to agree on a response to the military escalation.
And we are very clear today in calling for the LNA to withdraw to previously held positions and to cease military activity. There is no military solution in Libya, and we need to see everybody getting back into the political process being so expertly chaired by Ghassan Salameh and to resume dialogue.
We are supporting the de-escalation. We want, we want them to resume the dialogue, and we want a peaceful solution. There will be no military solution for this conflict. It has to be a political solution.
We fully support the SG and Ghassan Salameh's efforts and those of the United Nations more broadly to put an end to the current deadlock and to initiate a strong political momentum.
As Turkey accuses the U.S. State Department of making false claims about roads during a meeting between the top U.S. and Turkish diplomats, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he stands by the account.
I reread, I saw the comments by my Turkish counterpart. I reread the readout of our meeting. Spot on. Stand by every word of it. We discussed burden sharing. No alliance can survive without proper investment from all of its partners. Our allies have joined the United States in recognizing the need for greater burden sharing, each and every one of them. Remember that this notion of 2% isn't made up. It wasn't created by this administration in the United States. It wasn't created by the previous administration in the United States. It was a commitment that every NATO ally agreed to in Wales. That includes Germany, who committed to that. So the
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance has seen healthy increases in the German defense investments, a day after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence told a think tank forum that Germany must do more. The NATO chief also touched upon U.S. disagreement over Turkey's decision to buy Russia's S-400 missile defense system, saying it is a national decision what different system NATO allies procure.
Germany has started to increase and we have seen healthy increases in the German defense investments, the German defense budgets over the last years, and also in the proposed budget for 2020, for next year, there is a continued increase in defense spending. So this is not about, only pleasing the United States. This is about that we see that we live in a more challenging and demanding security environment, and therefore we need to invest more in our own security to preserve peace and to safeguard freedom. It is a national decision what kind of systems different NATO allies procure, but we fully realize that this is now a challenge, and it is an issue that has been discussed and is addressed by the United States and Turkey. It is not on the agenda of this ministerial meeting. We welcome that NATO is able to provide a platform for also addressing issues where there are disagreements between NATO allies, for instance on the issue related to the S-400 and the involvement or the planned delivery of F-35s to Turkey.
U.S. Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio is the latest Democrat to jump into the race for the party's presidential nomination, joining a crowded field vying to challenge Republican Donald Trump in 2020.
Yeah, we're in. We're excited. We're fired up. We're tired of being ignored. I feel like we deserve a lot better, and this is for all of the people back home I'm doing this for you and for all the communities around the country that are in the same boat. And that, if we show respect for each other, come together, the best of the Republican Party, the best of the Democratic Party, the best of business, the best of labor, the best of education, innovation, we can get this country back on track. And we have to, because there's so many pressing problems, and I think I can contribute to that. It's one of the biggest issues that we get a call at the local office about is people's pension, retirement security. Talk directly about what they think about at the kitchen table, every night. The worries, the concerns that they have. And tell them how you're going to make their kids' future better. And I can do that.
When we come back, the Iglesia Ni Cristo's Aid to Humanity reaches out to Molokai Island. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return shortly.
Know the latest news and info